Imagine a 5-year-old child witnessing one of the most brutal crimes in the United States. That night, Patrick Morrissey, a toddler, faced an unimaginable nightmare. His home was attacked by unknown assailants. His father was brutally murdered, and his mother was on the brink of death. Behind this tragedy lay a horrifying family conspiracy. Who was truly behind the murder of Joseph Morrissey? And how did this young child become the key to uncovering the truth? Follow this gripping and heartbreaking true story, filled with tension and betrayal, to find out the answers.
Today, we delve into one of the most horrifying murder cases ever to unfold in Florida, USA, with a young child as the key witness. This case not only shocked Florida with its brutality, but also with the disturbing family conspiracy that was uncovered. In this video, we will follow the story of Patrick Morrissey, a 5-year-old boy whose life was forever changed on the night of this tragedy. Patrick witnessed the gruesome murder of his adoptive father and played a crucial role in uncovering them. On April 5, 2010, the Morrissey family was the picture of a perfect life in the community. But everything took a turn for the worse at 10 p.m. Joe and Kay were still in front of the TV when an uninvited guest arrived. To their shock, the intruder immediately held the couple captive at gunpoint. Kay screamed as her husband Joe was deliberately murdered and their house was set on fire. A 5-year-old boy named Patrick Morrissey was sleeping in his parents' room when he was abruptly awakened by the screams and hysteria of his mother, Kay. He witnessed a terrifying scene, a man pointing a gun at Joe and holding Kay captive. Pretending to be asleep, Patrick saw his house already on fire. Kay whispered to Patrick to go outside and get help, but he had another idea. Patrick grabbed scissors from the kitchen to cut the bindings on Kay's hands and feet. Then, he ran outside to seek. Not take too long after the incident, the police arrived with reinforcements to secure the situation at Professor Joe Morrissey's house, where he lay in a gruesome state. The police quickly began investigating the crime scene, starting with examining the house and asking Kay, the first witness at the scene, for a description of the suspect. Patrick, the 5-year-old child, was also questioned by the police. They spoke to him in a manner that made him feel comfortable enough to reveal the truth, especially since Kay's testimony as the first witness could not be the sole basis for their investigation. Christine, Joe and Kay's eldest child, was shocked when she was awakened by the ringing of the telephone from the police. The sound of sirens in the background made the caller's voice unclear. During the conversation, Christine was asked to pick up her mother, Kay, from their home. Christine was even more shocked when she saw her home surrounded by police tape and neighbors. She tried to enter the house, but the police stopped her and told her that Joe was dead, murdered at the scene. At that moment, Christine broke down in tears, feeling like she had been hit by lightning. The police wouldn't let her go inside, and the reality of what happened was too much to bear. Shortly after, the police and detectives started gathering things that could be clues in the murder case. They got a big surprise when they found some DNA or fingerprints at the place where the crime happened. These prints matched someone in the Florida government records. The person involved was really shocked to find out they were being pointed at as the main suspect by the Florida detectives in the murder of Professor Joey Morrissey, who was the head of the Morrissey family. The first suspect is someone named Randy Tundador Jr., whose DNA was found on one of the cups in the house and some items he touched at the crime scene. The detective called back the first witness, Kay, to question this initial suspect. Without informing Kay that a person named Randy Tundador Jr. is a suspect, the detective asked if Kay knew anyone who might fit that description. Kay mentioned that he knew the person was a child of the tenant of their upscale home in Florida, who had not paid the rent for the house they occupied, which was owned by Joey Morrissey. The police began heading to the address of the townhouse rented by Randy Tundador Jr.'s father, which also served as Joe's residence. When a detective knocked on the door of the townhouse, he was surprised to see the occupant of the house weak, using an oxygen aid in his nose. sitting on the living room sofa. A police officer informed the occupant that the townhouse owner was suing them for suspected involvement in the death of Professor Joey, who was also the owner of the townhouse. The investigation of the first suspect was conducted through hours-long interviews at the Florida police office. The name of this first suspect was not announced to the public beforehand due to various reasons undertaken by the police to prevent any pressure they might face during the investigation. The police were disappointed with Randy Tundador Jr.'s answers to the questions posed by the police and detectives. Initially, Randy Jr. seemed enthusiastic about answering the police's questions, hoping to clear his name of the murder allegations against him. However, because his answers were convoluted and couldn't strengthen Randy's status as a suspect in Joey's murder, the police began to suspect the involvement of others. From there, the police found a second suspect, none other than Randy's own father, Randy Tundador Sr., who was ill and using oxygen assistance to breathe. His large body weight, reaching 300 pounds, made him a suspect who could potentially carry out physical activities requiring strong physical strength, such as Joey's murder, who had a comparable body weight. Randy Tundador Sr., who was 43 years old at the time, was going through middle adulthood, which made him less physically fit. However, he had a criminal record with the Florida police, indicating that he was manipulative, intelligent, and skilled in influencing others. Days passed, and the police, feeling overwhelmed by the deadlock, called Kay again as a witness whose testimony was still questioned. They also interrogated her toddler in a simple manner to gauge the honesty of a child who tends to dream more than speak truthfully. The police began to revisit the answers to new questions posed to Kay during the repeated interviews, where Kay remembered that someone else accompanied her when her husband, Joey, was murdered. However, she couldn't hear clearly as she only used a walkie-talkie radio. For the umpteenth time, the police officially interrogated and detained Randy Tundador Jr. to facilitate the investigation conducted by the detectives. The police began searching Randy Tundador Sr.'s townhouse and took items they believed could be used as evidence, based on Kay's testimony. Shortly after, the police began examining the testimony of Randy Tundador Jr.'s brother, Sean Tundador, to obtain information about the relationship between the brothers and their father, who had become a suspect. The police believed they were connected to the murder case. The first trial began, evidence was collected, and the trial proceeded according to procedure. However, in another trial, when Sean and Randy Jr. began to shift from defending themselves to accusing their father, Randy admitted that he did everything under his father's orders regarding Joey. It turns out, the seemingly weak person weighing 300 pounds was the mastermind behind Joey's murder, the owner of the luxurious townhouse occupied by the Tundador family. In court, Kay stated that she had heard her husband say that he had billed Randy Sr. for the townhouse rent, but she did not follow the instructions until Randy himself revealed that he would not pay for his townhouse rent, which became his motive for killing Joey, the owner of the luxurious townhouse. In court, Randy Jr. and his brother Sean exposed their father's facade as the real perpetrator, resulting in Randy Tundador Sr. being sentenced to death for his actions, while Randy Tundador Jr., as the prime suspect, was only sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder committed under his father's influence.
From here, we realize that our closest ones can become our enemies, or the ones who sincerely love us. Let's continue to love and care for each other to create peace in our environment. And now, I no longer feel the darkness.